Thank you everybody for joining. I'm really excited to speak with you today. So I'll jump right in. We're going to be talking about a new approach to enabling continuous risk management. Hard for me to say. Sorry about that. All right, so we're 20 years in, 3 generations later, still major gaps in VM. To put it quite frankly, as the title slide said, VM still sucks. Really, we've spoken to a lot of companies and nobody's satisfied with how their VM program is running. People that do feel good about it don't feel good about how hard it is to keep it in that operating state. So let's explore why that is. To start, the CVE is the center of the universe for most of these companies. Enrichment is really nothing more than the vulnerability itself, the score for that vulnerability, maybe a little bit of threat intelligence. And for technologies that customers might be using that allow for more advanced scoring, it's really a black box. They can't see why the score is what it is, how the calculations are applied. They certainly can't make any adjustments to those calculations or influence that model at all. And there's poor scalability for these platforms, which provides a problem for larger organizations. Limited customization, so whether it's the UI itself or the way that the scoring is done or the way that workflows work or what fields come in from source systems, in all ways it's a very limited customization, and that's driven by their inflexible data models. So at the end of the day, you're left with very few business insights, and it's very hard to get an overall updated picture of risk. So why is it so hard to understand our risk posture? Every security tool we have in our stack does the same thing. It provides the same core functions. It collects state, then allows us to understand risk, which allows us to drive reports and address risk. But the thing is that happens over and over again. It happens for your endpoint system, your asset system, identity, cloud, replicated across your entire environment, right? And the problem is each of these systems are doing the same thing, but they're doing it in their own context and from their own point of view, with their own definitions of risk, of reporting, and their guidance on how to address it. So this is really hard to scale. The data lives in silos and the intelligence lives in a black box. So what if instead we could collect state through your entire organization from any data source, any input? We could understand the risk and enrich and contextualize this with full transparency, harmonizing that data, turning it into information, and then report and address that risk, provide real-time information from any lens, allow you to build custom workflows that match your organization's specific operation style, build custom dashboards and reporting. That's exactly what we've built at Avalor. So let me talk through exactly how it looks. We take your traditional vulnerability feeds like Tenable, Rapid7, Qualys, third-party open source threat intelligence feeds, or proprietary ones, both by Avalor or others, like Sysakev, EPSS, our Avalor Threat Intelligence. But then we bring in everything else. So we're really exploding that definition of vulnerability, right? A lot of people, when they hear vulnerability management, they think about unpatched software, right? You know, Microsoft Edge needs to be patched, or Windows is running an old version. But we're talking about far more than just that. We're talking about cloud misconfigurations, which Wiz or Prisma or Aqua, among others, would bring to your attention. Code repository issues with static code analysis or DAST or SAS tools like Sneak, Checkmarks, and Invicti and others. And the list goes on and on. You see all of the technologies here. We support all of these. We have 150 pre-built connectors, and we can support any arbitrary source by pulling in a CSV, a JSON file, an XML file. As long as you can generate an export from that system, then we can import it dynamically into our environment. So what do we do with all of this information? We correlate all of these data points. We deduplicate, provide context, form relationships. So overall, provide this harmonization by creating the security knowledge graph. So just as a quick example, you might have source systems that are telling you the following things. There's an asset, like a laptop, that has vulnerabilities on it. You know who uses that laptop from another source system. And then you know from like PhishMe or KnowBe4 or some technology that that user has high risk for clicking on phishing links, you also know that that user has access to business critical applications because you're pulling an Okta and you know what applications that user has access to. So you can stitch all of that together and say, that's the reason that this particular laptop needs to be prioritized in patching the exact same issue that hundreds of laptops might have, or different issues that all have the same score, because now you've been able to factor in those additional details. Then we can also give you the ability to build reports and workflows that come out of the box, but you can customize them to meet your specific needs. And so we call this the data fabric for security, and it provides a much richer data set for doing a great job at vulnerability management. So with that, I know you guys would like to see a demo as well, so I'm excited to show you a demo of our platform. So I'm going to switch over here, and we'll talk about the platform, and I'll give you some additional visibility into exactly what I was just talking about, how that all works. So like I said, we have hundreds of existing integrations. As you can see here, I'm just scrolling through this list here. Traditional vulnerability management feeds like Qualys or Rapid7, Tenable, CSPM like Wiz, Orca, Prisma, etc. DSPM, you see Cyera here, among others. SAST, DAST, and SCA, like I said, there's Sneak and Veracode. It's really easy to configure an existing connector. You just search for it. So for example, I'll search for Qualys. And then all we do is enter the credentials so we go to the source system and we configure credentials for Avalor to use, and then you enter them here. So there's no software to install across your environment. It's just API endpoints that's a really scalable deployment. So if you've got 7 to 10 sources, which would be a lot for a customer, that's just going and creating 7 to 10 credentials in those systems once each, and then you're done. You enter them in, and you're good to go. We're going to pull that information in. Additionally, if you want to, either because you happen to have a data source that we don't support today, or you just are wanting to test out the platform before you get those credentials, and you just want to export a flat file, like I mentioned during the presentation, you can do that as well. So we support that through our functionality called AnySource. And in fact, our entire demo environment is built on the AnySource connector. So I'll go back over to Qualys again. Again, just to be clear, I showed you the Qualys connector a moment ago. We definitely have one for a major player in the space like Qualys. But for our demo environment, it was simpler for us to just build everything from flat files. And so you can see now I can use that as a way to showcase our AnySource capability. So imagine this wasn't Qualys, but it was like a pen test that you got from maybe a niche player in the space. So we don't already have an existing API. They may not even offer an API. They may not really be thinking in those terms of how they anticipate operationalizing their data for their customers. We can still help you operationalize that data in our platform, however. You simply take the data out of the pen test system and ingest it and upload it into Avalor. And then Avalor will parse it and present to you all of the fields that exist in that data file so that you can then perform a one-time mapping exercise. And I'll emphasize here that the screen that I'm showing right now is exposed and available to the end user. We pride ourselves on being a glass box, any kind of configuration, and you'll see some additional configuration screens as I go on with the demo. All of these screens are exposed to the end user, but we also have a full support, white glove customer success team that's included in the license. So if you're more of a take your car in to get the oil change rather than do it yourself, no problem. You can give us the business logic, say, hey, here's an export from my pen test. Can you please, map this and get it into Avalor, and we can do that for you. But as you can see, the process is fairly straightforward. You take a field like asset name and you say, okay, that's going to map to the entity called asset and the field called name. So I put it right here. Anything on the left is the data field that came in from the source. The stuff on the right is, of course, the standardized, normalized Avalor data model. So we're ingesting this data, whether we're getting it from API or through a CSV or any other data format. We map it. And now once the sources are connected, we harmonize all of this data, both within the data source itself and across all data sources. So if multiple systems are all reporting on a common asset, the Avalor platform recognizes that and merges those details so that to give the full picture of that asset. So maybe Qualys was giving us vulnerability information about an asset. ServiceNow CMDB is giving us more context information about that asset, and so on. So we can pull all of that in together and give you that whole picture. And then we also give you the superset of assets. So that's a major challenge for customers, is actually figuring out just how many assets do they have in their environment. We're not just relying on any one source, but we're pulling from all of your sources, again, doing that deduplication and that merging so that we give you that actual up-to-date figure of exactly how many assets you have, as an example there. Okay, so let's move on to prioritization. So Avalor gives you the ability to define exactly how you want to prioritize your findings. And once again, we expose this to you so that you can come in and configure this yourself, or you can lean on our customer success team to help you with it. But just to walk through this, as you can see, we start with the CVSS and the EPSS and the original severity score. And really what we see in the wild, what we see in the field is most companies are just prioritizing on CVSS today. Maybe some really feel good about the fact that they've dipped their toe in a more elegant or advanced prioritization scheme by using EPSS, which, for those who may not know, is another source that's out there. It's open source, and it's a feed that complements the CVSS score of a CVE by giving more contextual data around how likely is that vulnerability to be exploited. Are we seeing it in the wild? Is it really hard to weaponize, or is it really easy to weaponize? Does it require like a lot of custom coding, or is there a toolkit available? Is it leveraging a port that's not typically open on assets, or is it a very well-known port that's often open, et cetera? So that gives you a little bit more context from a base perspective. And then, of course, the original severity score is exactly what it sounds like. It's the score that's coming in from your source system. So we take those three base factors, and then where it really gets interesting is Avalor gives you the ability to add in any additional factor that is relevant for your organization. In this demo system, we've put a bunch in just to kind of plant the ideas, but it doesn't have to be just these. But there's things like if it's open to the web, if the asset has sensitive information on it, like PII, if the user is high risk or prone to phishing, and so on and so on and so on. If the system is high business criticality. Excuse me, if we have telemetry on these systems, then anything on the left is going to ratchet up the score, whereas anything on the right, we're going to give you credit for those compensating controls that you've deployed in your environment. If it's behind a firewall, or if it has EDR on it, like MS Defender, then we're going to reduce the score. If you want to add a different factor, you just click the Add Factor button, navigate to the right field within our data model. As you can see, there's lots and lots of fields. You select the one that applies for your situation, you give it a name, define the scores, and you add that to the system. So to the program. So it's really easy to extend this model as well. So let's take a quick look at what this looks like from a practitioner lens perspective. So here's from an administration perspective how we construct this scoring model, but then I come over as a member of the end user computing team. So Avalor knows which tickets to route to me as one of the people on the end user computing team. And so I'm looking at those specific tickets that have been grouped here. I see all of the other teams in my organization as well. And these tickets are all sorted by the severity that we just discussed. You can see the original severity next to it, right? So it's talking about what this initial severity score was as compared to the final severity score. And then also, if you want to drill in and learn more about why did that change from, say, 9.6 to 9.3, you can come in and you can see the explicit details for this situation that aligns back with that scoring that we were just looking at, right? So the overall model is here. And then we can see the specific math that went into this situation for this finding here. So the person responsible for taking care of the situation can very easily see. They might be asking, now, wait a minute, why is this the most important thing? In this case, it went from 9.6 down to 9.3, actually, because the EPSS score is very low. It's on a scale of 1 to 10. But just imagine that this has gone from like a 6 to a 9.3, and they're wondering, is this really that critical? What made it so critical? Well, they can come in and they can see, and they can say, okay, now I definitely get it. I do need to patch that more quickly. So it's giving them the data so they're looped in to the situation and they can act accordingly. All right, so let's transition over to grouping and workflows. So you see here that this ticket has multiple findings associated with it. It has 12 findings across 3 assets, and those are coming in from multiple sources, Qualys and Tanium. And this is a demo environment. It's only got about 100 total assets on it. So let's not get too hung up on the fact that 12 and 3 aren't super big numbers. In production environments, I've seen hundreds of thousands for common vulnerabilities, like things that affect Google Chrome or Java vulnerabilities, etc. So what Avalor is doing is it's grouping these 12 findings into a single cluster or ticket because the same actor is going to resolve the issue, the end user computing team, because it's on Windows workstations, and because it affects the same system, Microsoft Edge. And so the same solution exists for all of these findings. And I can show you that by coming in and clicking on fixes. We see that it's the same fix for all these assets, for all these findings on these assets. All you need to do is apply this update of Microsoft Edge, and all of these findings will be resolved. So for that reason, it makes perfect sense to group these things together. Now, I'll quickly show you the screen where we configure this. So this is saying the end user computing grouping rule. If the asset type has the word workstation, and if we have the finding component key, it's not empty, then we want to group by asset type and component key, which is exactly what we saw on the previous page, right? It was Microsoft Edge findings on Windows workstation. So it was grouped because it was Microsoft Edge was the component and Windows workstation was the asset type. Now, let's say that a company says, this was working for us, but we've just broken up our team, our end user computing team, into 2 regions. Now we have an East and a West region. So we need to adjust our grouping rules. It's really easy to do that. We come in here and we would just add another condition for asset region. And then assuming the telemetry is coming in for those core assets, right? So now we know that laptop X is in East and laptop Y is in West or whatever. Then we've got that telemetry, and we can add that to the factor for doing grouping. And so now we would have tickets that are grouped not only by asset type and component, but also based on the region that they're in. So it's really easy to extend this in a scalable way. The last thing I'll show in the demo is a couple of custom dashboards that we've built. So the platform gives you the ability to create custom dashboards on the fly. So these don't have to be built by product management or engineering. The end user can build these on your own. And like I've said before, we also have your customer success team supporting you. So if you'd rather just say, hey, build me an asset inventory dashboard, you can do that, and then we'll build it for you. I built this dashboard in about 10 minutes, so it's really not hard to build dashboards from scratch. And as you can see, what we're showing here is how many assets do we have? What type of assets are they? What data sources are reporting on the assets? So, the Prisma and the Qualys, et cetera. What type of operating system is it? And then even more detailed telemetry, like, is there personally identifiable information on the assets? Which assets have access? Which assets have users with access to critical applications, EDR coverage, et cetera? So whatever kind of dashboard you want to build, you can with our platform. For example, here's a different dashboard where this is a screenshot taken from an actual customer. I sanitized it just by putting this little bumblebee over here. But I took the screenshot before we shared this with the customer. So these numbers are much better now. But basically what they said to us is, we struggle with keeping tabs on whether the software that we have purchased and licensed to run our organization's security operations program, if it's installed in the right place. So it's really easy to get this left line, right? Like, where is Carbon Black installed? You just get an export from Carbon Black. But the problem is, where is Carbon Black not installed, but should be? And that's where it gets really complicated for 2 reasons. The first reason is most companies have difficulty getting a holistic, comprehensive asset inventory to begin with. And we do that, as I've explained, by pulling in the data from all of your data sources and then recognizing when they're reporting on the same asset and merging them into a single asset, but also recognizing when, say, the CMDB that's supposed to be the source of truth is missing an asset that Qualys is reporting on. If Qualys is reporting a vulnerability, or Carbon Black in this case, then we know that asset exists, and so we're going to add it to the inventory. So ultimately, we get that superset of inventory, and that's the first half of the problem. But the second half of the problem is we don't want to just take every single asset in your environment, subtract out carbon black, and give you the rest, because then you're going to have Ring doorbells and thermostats and things that aren't in scope for carbon black. So we also filter the widget to say, in this case, it was all workstations and Windows servers. So if the asset type is that, and the asset does not already have carbon black on it, then it contributes to this number here. And as you see, the customer was right. They had a substantial problem when they first began working with us. About 8,000 out of 30,000 or so did not have carbon black, but should. I peeked at the dashboard a few days ago, and these numbers are much better now because the customer now has the ability to action this information in a very, very manageable way. You can also do any kind of dashboard, any kind of widget you want. Just one other widget I'll show you on this dashboard is assets without BigFix and Intune. So this is when the customer is migrating from BigFix to Intune, and they don't have either on a specific asset. So they have blind spots, right? If they just take their BigFix inventory list and go and put Intune on all of those assets, they're still going to be missing 8,500 assets that are supposed to have this technology on it. So Avalor helps them make sure that their migration is picking up those blind spots. And then on the reverse side, what if it has both? You're not supposed to leave BigFix and Intune on. You're supposed to remove BigFix. But what if something went wrong and the uninstall didn't work? Avalor can report on that too. And then, of course, we can generate reports that give you the list of data that you need to go action this, like I said a moment ago. I've sorted this by asset type, but of course, you could also filter it by asset type because maybe you want the Windows workstation list to go to one team, or person, the Mac workstations to go to a separate person, the Windows servers to go to a third person, etc. But once you get this down to a manageable situation and you just have a couple, trickling in on a daily basis, you can just generate automatic notifications that can either send an email out or it can be integrated with the ticketing system. Anything that we do within Avalor can be automatically integrated with the ticketing system in a bi-directional way. So just to show you that real quick, if I come right here, I can configure it to automatically create a Jira ticket or a ServiceNow ticket. So you can have multiple different ticketing systems. And right now I'm doing it manually, but you can also build logic that says, if it's this kind of an issue, then automatically create a ticket within Jira. If it's this kind, automatically ServiceNow, et cetera. And it's a bi-directional sync. So whether the users want to come into the Avalor platform or stay in the ticketing system, we can support them in whichever world they want to live in. And if the business marks it as remediated, but we still see it being reported as a problem, then we can provide that check and balance. So we can say, hey, the business said that they remediated it, but Qualys is still telling us that this system's not patched. So that often happens when the system has to be rebooted and they forgot to do that or something went wrong with the installation. So we support that bi-directional ticketing as well. Just in the last 30 seconds, I'll quickly flash one or two more dashboards just to give you some additional context. Obsolete software is a popular topic. Of course, this is much different than unpatched software. This is saying that it's been unpatched for so long that the vendor doesn't even support the software anymore. So no enterprise should have obsolete software, but the question is, do you have a good mechanism to quickly visualize where those problem spots are? And then the last one I'll show you is Log4j. So the focus isn't Log4j specifically. The point is, something new comes out, it's really problematic, it's making the news, the senior leadership wants to know what's our exposure to this or that, and they come down to you and say, hey, how much are we affected? And you got to go to multiple different systems and pull reports, and how do you position that and present it to your leadership? With Avalor, you just build a quick dashboard. We even have like a template where all you have to do is go in and put the CVE number for the CVE in question, and then everything else on the screen gets automatically populated. So it's a really quick way to give that visibility to your management team. All right, so to wrap up, these are the key advantages. I talked through all of these things already, so I won't spend much time on this. Just real quick, we do automation. We give you the contextual feeds so that you've got much more context in order to do that adjusted scoring, which is the next topic. We give you coverage analysis like that dashboard I just walked through, which also gives you the ability to do CMDB hygiene to get better data in your CMDB. I showed you the reporting and dashboards, and we talked about workflows. So hopefully we covered everything here. So it's really easy to up-level your VM program with Avalor. Takes less than an hour. You pick a couple data sources, maybe up to 4, get those credentials or upload files like I talked about. Within 2 weeks tops, customers are seeing value. It's a really quick process, and you'll finally have a VM program that works. So just call to action, check out our website at avalor.io or email us at sales@avalor.io if you'd like to learn more. So Matt, that wraps up the presentation. If you can
It
see if there's any
does.
questions, if we have some time.
Yeah, Lee, thank you so much. First off, appreciate the
Hmm.
presentation, number one. Huge, huge, huge. Like I got to say, watching you walk through it, I think, and I'm hoping other attendees saw this too, is just you can just quickly see about how much value can be garnered from the platform and kind of things that you can rip out of it. So appreciate you taking the time to walk us through that. I do have a couple of questions, and I'm just double checking a few little platforms here. Sometimes I get things in different places.
Sure.
First one, and give me 1 second here. I am very good at organizing this. What happens if I have a data source or a feed that's not reflected in your model? What happens then?
Yeah, good question. And I know there's a lot of content covered there, so um, might not have picked that up when I was presenting, but we support this, full stop. You just upload the file, Avalor parses it, and then there's a manual mapping exercise, one-time exercise that takes 5-10 minutes. You can do it
Mm,
yourself, or our customer success team can do it. So we can pull in like pen test results or data from systems that either we don't already support, or maybe they don't even have an API to enable something like that. We just need to get the
mhm.
data in, and then we can support it.
Gotcha. Okay, awesome. Another question. I knew this one was coming, and I kind of indicated at the beginning. I was like, "You guys have been pretty busy
Hmm.
lately," and here it
Right.
comes. Right, uh, Zscaler. First off, congrats, Avalor.
Yep.
Saw you guys just got bought by Zscaler. Does anything change? What happens now?
Yeah, so I'm super excited about it. I think the whole team is on both sides. It's been about a month now, and we've had a really positive reception from the team at Zscaler. And with respect to our product vision, in the near term, very little changes. We're still addressing risk with our solution. It's a great
Mm,
complement to Zscaler's existing products. It's a self-contained offering, so there's no dependency on Zscaler services. And there's a very meaningful market. We had tremendous momentum and success coming into the acquisition, and that's continuing. Um, in the longer term, our data fabric for security, is going to really be the cornerstone for the overall Zscaler architecture.
mhm,
And so there's going to be a lot of synergies where we're bringing, not only leveraging Zscaler data, but also the third-party data to create a very robust and unique data set that's going to enable unique insights and capabilities for risk reduction and threat detection and response for our customer base.